If you were ever an 8-year-old that thinks you're a lot cooler than you actually are, you've probably played at least one Sonic game. I know I have, although being an 8-year-old I never actually finished any of them. So may as well start with Sonic Adventure and cash in on the 90s kid nostalgia. Anyway, the game's been out for like 25 years now, so let's have a look at how well it's aged. Quickly, before we get into things, I stole some of my information from this Cybershell video. It's pretty interesting, so I'll link it in the description. The controls have aged like a fine milk, so in other words it feels like I'm playing a block of
cheese.
Playing through the game I was constantly running into walls, falling off of cliffs and getting stuck. When I'm not falling off a cliff, I'm clipping through walls and floating in the sky. I thought I wasn't supposed to unlock Jesus mode until after I beat the game, but alright. Also, the camera doesn't follow you when you change direction, so you have to slowly and painstakingly manually spin the camera. And which button is for moving the camera? If you, like a normal person, guessed the right analog stick, you'd be fucking wrong, dumbass. It's the bloody bumpers. I don't even know why they decided to make it this way. Is it because that's how it was in the original version? They already changed it to be the C-stick for the GameCube port, so why would you go backwards? What the hell kind of drugs are they on at Sega? Supposedly the controls are better in the Dreamcast version and were just fucked up by the time of the Steam version, due to it being a port of a port of a port of a port. But I don't own a Dreamcast, so I'm gonna pretend it isn't real. The vehicle sections are better since they're usually in wider areas, so there are less walls to hit. You can actually achieve some speed in a Sonic game. This is completely unheard of. The boss battles are probably the best part of the game. The control issues aren't so bad here because once again you don't have to deal with walls getting in the way. The battles aren't particularly difficult, but they're still pretty fun. I'll let some of my complaints about the controls go because this is the first 3D Sonic game. No, I'm not counting 3D Blast and you can't make me. Alright guys, I have to admit something. I downloaded the beta SADX mod about 80% of the way through Sonic Story, and oh my god, this is so much better. Yeah, sure, it's not the proper Sonic Adventure experience, but I've played enough of this game to know the vanilla controls suck, and this won't make me turn to drugs and crime. The story is alright, it's pretty standard stuff. Collect Chaos Emeralds, Eggman brings out some giant evil thing, Sonic turns into Super Sonic and saves the day. As a villain, Chaos is kinda boring if I'm being honest. I mean, it's just an angry puddle. Also, the fucking dripping noises it makes whenever it's on screen are horrible. Luckily, Eggman is still around. He isn't quite peak Eggman yet, but he still has his moments. I do really like that each character has their own story. I've always thought that games that do the same story from multiple perspectives, so you can see why things happen, was really cool. I probably would have preferred a smaller number of longer stories because do we really need Tails or Knuckles? The other stories are mostly just alternate versions of levels from the Sonic story, which kind of sucks, but still cool to play them in a different way. Except for fishing. Fuck fishing. Who in their right mind would think it's a good idea to add fucking fishing to a Sonic game? Not only that, fishing is required to beat the game. It's not just an optional minigame for extra bonuses. Why the hell is fishing mandatory? Because of some crackhead at Sonic Team 25 years ago, I have wasted an hour of my life playing as a fat dumb fuck cat, fishing for his pet frog who clearly hates him. Although I will admit, Big's Chaos 6 fight was pretty funny. The final boss was a perfect ending to the game. Perfect Chaos is a really cool final boss, being a giant water monster that's overtaken everything, and Super Sonic is still one of the coolest transformations of all time. The fight is really fun since the goal is just to run as fast as possible while dodging everything being thrown at you. And the music change for the second phase just sealed it as being one of the coolest final bosses I've ever seen. The music kinda goes crazy, but to be fair it's a Sonic game. Even the Sonic games that are a bit shit, or a lot shit, still have a kick-ass soundtrack. At this point I'm like 80% sure that Sega just makes games to show off their music, because they seem to be better at making game soundtracks than the games themselves. The character models I think have aged surprisingly well. Obviously they wouldn't be winning any awards these days, but within the game and its art style they still look pretty good. They probably get away with it since most of the main characters aren't human, so they don't look as creepy. This only applies to the DX version, but I prefer the updated models anyway. If you disagree, well, sucks to be you. This is my video and I decide what goes in it. Obviously I can't talk about this game without mentioning the goofy ass facial animations. Yeah, they don't exactly look good, but they are hilarious and I love them. They were probably made in the Super Mario 64 title screen, but still, Sonic Adventure just wouldn't be the same without them. Although the rest of the animations can come out kinda half-assed. Like at one point, Sonic is falling from the sky and it just plays his normal running animation. Stuff like that is just kinda sad. The levels are all pretty cool, lots of variety and cool looking areas. Some of them do look a bit dull and drained, but once again this seems to be an issue with the DX port because they decided to redo a lot of the textures and lighting. The levels in the Dreamcast version often look better, but once again, I don't own a Dreamcast. Anyone who says Sonic Adventure is the best one is fucking lying. Yeah, sure, it's a good game and was revolutionary at the time, but between the god-awful controls, half-assed animations, and lackluster story, it doesn't deserve the title of the best Sonic game, especially when Colors and Generations exist, which in my opinion are just way better games. But considering it's like $12 on Steam and mods can fix most of the issues with the game, it's definitely worth playing, and has earned its reputation as a gaming classic.